Hi, I'm Konstantin Baum, Master of Wine, and today I'm going to taste some serious wines that made it into this year's version of the prestigious Wine Spectator's top 10 list, the best out of thousands and thousands of wines. I'm going to open these bottles and I'm going to tell you what I really think of Wine Spectator's crème de la crème. Let's roll. The Wine Spectator is one of the most widely distributed wine magazines, and they've put together a top 100 list every year since 1988. Their editors select some of the most exciting wines that they've tasted and reviewed during the year, and those wines don't necessarily have to be the most highly rated wines. They also take factors like value and availability into consideration. I rarely read the Wine Spectator as I think that it has become more of a lifestyle magazine, and I don't really like the fact that they allow advertisements by producers that they're also supposed to review independently. This is a big problem in wine journalism in general, as many magazines are far too dependent on wineries and they are supposed to review them objectively. How are you supposed to do that if they pay the bills? On a lighter note, I just had a look at the first top 100 list that was published in 1988, and it's quite interesting and a bit funny. Most of the wines are actually from Bordeaux, Burgundy and Barbaresco, and there are only 2 wines in the top 20 that are from the US. Domaine de la Romanée-Conti's Richebourg is listed at $210, Petrus at $160, and Caymus Cabernet Sauvignon Napa Valley at $12, double the price of Antinori's Santa Cristina. How times have changed. But now let's dive into the wines. One more thing, if you liked this video so far, then please like it down here and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out, so thank you in advance. And now let's taste. So I'm not going from white to red wines. Instead, I'm going down the top 10 list. And this wine was in 7th place. It's the 2019 Chateau de Beaucastel Chateauneuf-du-Pape. It was rated 96 points. This is a famous estate from Chateauneuf, and it's run by the Perrin family, who are also involved in the Miraval project together with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Is she still involved? I don't know. Let me know down in the comments. But now let's open this baby. Beaucastel is certified organic, and they also do some biodynamic farming. They are well known to be one of the estates that still uses all 13 grape varieties that are allowed in Chateauneuf. And they also do use quite a lot of Mourvèdre. This blend is 30% Mourvèdre, 30% Grenache, and then there's Syrah, Counoise, and Cinsault, and some other grape varieties. The grapes are destamped and the grape varieties are vinified separately. Some go into oak vessels and others go into concrete tanks, just to make sure that they all kind of get to express what the grape variety is about. After malolactic fermentation, the blend is put together and it's then aged in foeders for a year before bottling. Chateauneuf-du-Pape is such an interesting region still. I think, well, prices have gone up, but they are still affordable considering that they are such classics. Beaucastel is obviously quite a bit more expensive, but it's really considered to be one of the best in the region. My first time working with Beaucastel was when I was a sommelier, a young sommelier working on the floor. And this kind of became one of my ideas of what Chateauneuf-du-Pape, what great Chateauneuf-du-Pape can be. This is different to some of the others like Rayas or Clos du Pape. This is a bit more concentrated, a bit more rich, a bit more structured. It's very clean. It doesn't have those bready aromas that you get from some other Chateauneufs, but it's a beautiful wine. The wine is fairly dark in color. Some of the Chateauneufs that are more based on Grenache, they tend to be a little lighter. This is quite dark, and I think that is mainly due to the high content of Mourvèdre. The wine smells of blackberries, licorice. It's quite intense and in your face. It doesn't have pronounced oak flavors, which is something that I appreciate. On the palate, it's rich and concentrated. The tannins are grippy. There is good freshness there. I mean, this is so young. This is a baby, but it's drinking really well right now. It's not something that you have to age. You should age it because it gets more complex, not complicated, maybe even complicated, I don't know. But it gets more complex, more refined. But it's a lot of fun right now already. This is a beautiful wine, and at $120 retail, it better should be. But I don't think it's a 96 point wine in my book. I think for 96 points, it should be a little bit more extraordinary, special. It just needs that special sparkle. And For me, this is a 94-point wine, which is still a great score, not quite at the same level. Beautiful, complex wine, definitely very age-worthy as well. And yeah, I already regret pulling that cork. I have some older Beaucastels in my cellar as well. They age really well, and this one should definitely have been aged a little bit longer. The next wine is also a really well-known wine. It's the 2019 Tignanello from Antinori in Tuscany, and it was rated 96 points by Wine Spectator and put in 5th place. I don't really know how many times Tignanello has already been in that list, but I'm guessing quite a lot of times because Tignanello has been around for a long time and the quality is generally really high. There's different opinion when it comes to Tignanello. Some people say that it's more of a brand and it's not really linked to a specific place, but all of the grapes come from this 127 hectare big vineyard that also produces Solaya and some other wines. And I think the quality is just amazing. I mean, it's not cheap for sure, but the quality is really there. They've really been very consistent when it comes to quality in Tignanello, and the wine is pretty reliable and performs at a very high level. The producer Antinori is one of the oldest winemaking families, and they can trace their roots back to the 14th century, which is really crazy. They've been really innovative as well. They've been very much involved in the super Tuscan trend in Tuscany and have made some amazing wines all around the world. This is, I think, the most well-known, at least. Not the most expensive, not necessarily the best, but the most well-known brand on the premium side of things. Tignanello is mainly made from Sangiovese with Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc mixed in. And the grapes are harvested in mid-September to mid-October, and they age the wine in French and Hungarian oak. Roughly 50% is new oak and the rest is second use and third use. And the wine stays in oak vessels for roughly a year. The wine is really beautiful. It shows some cherry flavor and there's also a little bit of spice there. The oak is really well integrated. It's kind of absorbed into the fruit. And on the palate, it's juicy and rich. The tannins are present, but they are actually surprisingly rounded, considering that this is 2019. And in the finish, you have this beautiful freshness, so a really lively, very balanced wine. In the beginning, I also wasn't really a fan of Tignanello. The bottles were everywhere, so it kind of felt less special. But if you taste the wine, it's actually super beautiful. I have some bottles in my collection that I keep for a longer time because I think the wine also ages really well and gets more complex and interesting with age. I think this will just be ready in 3, 4, 5 years, and it starts to develop a little bit more tertiary flavors. Right now, it's also really a bit too young. I think when Antinori started this project, they looked at the top Bordeaux chateaus, Tignanello, Lafite, Latour. So it's a very clear message. They don't look at different sides and make it complicated. They just have one wine, one name. And also, when it comes to volume, Lafite, Latour, Mouton, and so on and so forth, they also produce pretty large volumes. So it's actually not too bad to have a bigger volume of high quality wine if you want to distribute it well all around the world. This wine is available everywhere and it's really good pretty much every year. So I definitely recommend it. I'm going to rate it 95 points. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful wine. Again, I'm looking for a little bit more excitement from it to push it to 96 or more, but this is definitely worth drinking. So it's only fitting that the next wine is from Bordeaux. It's the 2019 Chateau Talbot from Saint-Julien, which was rated 95 points by Wine Spectator and is in 4th place. The winery was classified as a 4th growth in 1855. And it's actually a little bit underrated. The brand is not really well known. So it's also one of the cheaper wines in the top 10, retailing for $65. I've been to Bordeaux many times and I've actually lived there for a while, but I've never been at Chateau Talbot. I think this estate is 110 hectares big. It's based in Saint-Julien, which is actually a very interesting, very exciting part of the Médoc, producing some really, really great wines. The blend is 69% Cabernet Sauvignon, 26% Merlot, and 5% Petit Verdot. In a Bordeaux blend, Cabernet Sauvignon usually brings the structure, the quality, the aromatics of Cassis and so on and so forth. Merlot gives the wine a little bit more grâce, as the French say, a little bit more richness on the palate, a little bit more juiciness. And Petit Verdot is called Petit Verdot because, well, it actually means, translated, the little green one, and gives some spice notes to the wine. So it can be a great addition to a Bordeaux cuvée, just to give the wine a little bit more flavor, a little bit more pepperiness, another dimension. I just noticed that Talbot is actually also putting a QR code on the capsule. They do that in order to protect themselves from fraud. You can scan this and then you find some information on that bottle in order to make sure that it's the real deal. 2019 was actually a beautiful vintage, so I'm expecting this wine to be really good, but let's see. So I know I should actually decant those wines or carafe them to give them a little bit more air, but I like to taste them like this from the bottle and then kind of imagine myself what the wine would be like with a little bit more air. I definitely am going to taste these wines again and again over the next few days just to see how they develop. This is a beautiful wine. You know, I really like Bordeaux. People tend to poo-poo on Bordeaux because prices are too high or the owners are too snobby, but I actually think the wines can be just outstanding, amazing. And this is actually, compared to the previous wines we had from other regions, is actually a really good value. I think this is delicious. The wine smells of cassis, blackberry, cedar wood. There's some oak flavor coming through, but it's not overpowering. And on the palate, there are grippy tannins, great freshness. There's more structure to it than to the previous two wines. So this is, for me, a wine that actually definitely needs some aging. It's juicy and beautiful right now, but these tannins will allow it to age longer than the other two wines, I think. And yeah, it's just delicious. Really, really. Wine Spectator was actually a little bit higher than Robert Parker on this wine. RobertParker.com gave it 93 points. I agree with Wine Spectator. I think this is beautiful. I'm giving it 95 points. And I think in this quality category, this is actually a great price. I would buy this for sure, and you can put it away and keep it for a few decades, or you can drink it fairly soon, depending on your preferences. This is the real deal. So the next one is the first white wine in this tasting. It's the 2019 Hyde de Villaine Hyde Vineyard from Napa in California. It was rated 96 points by Wine Spectator, and it's coming in third place. So this is a joint venture between Aubrac de Villaine from the Domaine de la Romani Conti and the Hyde family from California, who own this vineyard. And Aubrac de Villaine decided to get involved with them because he saw the potential of this site. And I agree, I really like many wines that come from this vineyard. They are special, they have lots of structure, can be really fresh, but still have quite a lot of concentration as well. They focus on Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon in this venture. And I've tasted the Chardonnay before and I really liked it. Spoiler alert. Carneros is one of the coolest AVAs in Napa. It is very close to the San Pablo Bay and gets a lot of fog in the morning. And on top of that, there's quite a lot of wind coming in from the Pacific to cool down the vineyards. And that's why the producers there can focus especially on Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that, well, are opulent and rich, can be opulent and rich, but also always have this freshness and vibrancy. So this one is made in a pretty classic Burgundian way. It's fermented and aged in barriques. 15% to 20% were new, and it's then settled in stainless steel and bottled unfined and unfiltered. Score. Oh, another delicious wine. I mean, well, this is really interesting because actually most Chardonnays all around the world, when it comes to premium Chardonnay, they kind of mirror what is happening in Burgundy. And this is made in a very Burgundian way, but it also really shows Californian heritage. But it also has this very fresh and vibrant stylistic expression. So there's quite a lot going on here, but I think the vineyard really comes out. There's ripeness here, there's peachiness there, there's a little bit of orange zest as well. On the palate you have structure and richness, but also this fresh and vibrant finish, which I absolutely love. I think it's nice to see that Aubert de Villaine is not trying to make a Burgundy here. He's kind of doing what he's doing at home. Still, he's bringing out the terroir of the site, and yeah, this is really good. I think I actually have to agree with Wine Spectator again. This is a 96-point wine in my book. It has this special oomph, this je ne sais quoi, or whatever you want to call it. And the last wine in first place is the 2019 Schrader Cellars Double Diamond Cabernet Sauvignon from Oakville in Napa Valley. It was rated 94 points by Wine Spectator, and it retails for $80, which is actually not crazy expensive when it comes to top-notch Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa. So Fred Schrader founded this winery in 1998. Before that, he was in the art business, and he was also racing cars and creating a cigar brand. So he was doing quite a lot of different things before this. Schrader Cellars is now really well known. They are producing some outstanding wines. This is kind of an entry-level offering of theirs. So it's quite interesting that this was rated or put in first place by Wine Spectator. I actually have never tasted this wine, but I'm interested in tasting it. So this is the 2018 vintage instead of the 2019 vintage, which isn't available in Germany at the moment, unfortunately. But I still wanted to try this, even though this is just a different vintage. So when it comes to the sub-AVAs of Napa Valley, Oakville is actually very famous for the production of Cabernet Sauvignon. This is where Opus 1 is based, and the majority of the grapes here, 70%, are from the Tocalón vineyard, which is one of the most famous vineyards in California. So this wine was aged in barriques, 50% in new oak and the rest in 1-year-old oak. So this all sounds pretty amazing. Great vineyard, expensive winemaking, very well-known producer. So let's taste it. So the wine is rich and concentrated. It smells of plums, cherries, cassis. It's a little broad. It's not as well defined as most of the other wines. The oak is present, but it's not overpowering. And on the palate, it's very rich and voluptuous. The alcohol stands out a little bit, even though the wine is actually fairly cold. And yeah, it's not as harmonious as all of the other wines that I've tasted so far. But don't get me wrong, this is a very good wine. I just don't think that it's as good as the previous one, so I don't really understand why this is in the first place. Wine Spectator gave it 94 points, and I'm going to give it 91 points. I think it just doesn't really have the balance complexity that I would expect. Granted, this is the 2018 vintage, not the 2019, so I don't really know what the 2019 would be like. I can just talk about what is in my glass. So what were my overall impressions of Wine Spectator's top 10 in 2022? Overall, I gotta say the ratings were pretty fair. I can't really compare the Double Diamond because I didn't have the exact same vintage, but all of the other wines were rated really well. In my opinion, were pretty much according to my taste. What I found interesting is seeing that there was just one white wine in the whole top 10. There was another sparkling wine, Roderas Cristal, but there was just one white and the rest were reds. It was also interesting seeing that 4 wines in the top 10 were from the US, which is maybe a little more than one would expect, but it's, I guess, mainly because Wine Spectator caters to an US audience and therefore also wants to show more wines from the country, which totally makes sense to me. I think it would be nice if they would focus more on the value category, if there were more wines that are actually affordable to a wide range of people. Most of those wines in the top 10 were above $100, and that's kind of crazy to most wine consumers. There were no real surprises in the top 10. Most of these wines are very well known. I mean, I didn't know the Double Diamond, but I'm guessing many people do. I didn't really understand why this was in first place, because all of the other wines were better in quality and some even offered better value for money. But well, it's just one of those things, I guess. So my favorite wines of the tasting were the Hyde de Villaine Chardonnay, just beautiful, precise, exciting Napa Chardonnay, and the Chateau Talbot, a very classic and beautiful Bordeaux style, but I can't really complain. I mean, all of these wines were just beautiful. This was a very decadent tasting, but yeah, these two are my favorites. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it down here and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers this year, so please do subscribe. Do me this favor. I hope I see you guys again very soon. Until then, stay thirsty.